He witnessed what many are calling a massacre, and then was left for days amidst the dead bodies of his mother and 4 brothers.
The first time I was in contact with one of the Sammunis was at the Shifa hospital just after the grand invasion.
The horror 16-year-old Ahmed Sammuni has seen was hard for him to put into words, but the effects are written all over his face.
من أول يوم ضل يتسب استشهدت على مطرحي وأخويا الصغير نصار 4 إخوة وأمي معهم استشهدوا.
قاعد بعيط بس يسمع خراف الناس، عيان مريض كلهم مرضى، مش عارف ايش بدي احكي معك. انا الاولاد عيانين مش عارف اتحرك، طلع بس يسمع صوت اي بني ادم بيحكي بصير يتضايق الولد، متضايق الولد. تفرج كتفه هذا من هون، هذا كتفه من تحت مخمج، له ريحه ما حدا قادر هو الولد لما بدير راسه غير بيقدرش يجوز الريحه تبعت كتفه، هذه ايده كلها خربانه رجله.
The very first ones of the Sammunis, the members that had managed to flee right when the troops were beginning to shell that area, had gone to the hospital to try and speak to the Red Cross and convince them to go back to the area and save their relatives.
Okay, so this is really the closest we can get to the Sammuni house. It's about 1 kilometer that way in an area called Zaytun, but it's really not safe to go there. In fact, paramedics, journalists and humanitarians can't get to that area without special permission from the Israeli army. Now, Zaytun, the neighborhood where the Sammuni household is just one neighborhood where Israeli ground troops are operating. And according to the Red Cross, there are many more houses in different neighborhoods which could potentially have injured and dead people still inside.
And then we had 3 of the most frustrating days ever, because the Red Cross tried every single day to get to Zaytun, get to that neighborhood. And we knew, because they were still calling, that they were still trapped.
You can't see the other building that has been hit, but it is right behind this tower with the smashed out windows. It is a media tower, Shuruq Tower, that has several news organizations in it, including Reuters and several other pan-Arab news channels, as well as print media and European media. And unfortunately, that building was struck.
When the attacks happened on the media buildings, it really confirmed our worst fears that they would find a reason to justify hitting these towers.
Okay, so gathered here are dozens of journalists, both Arab journalists and ones from international stations. Everyone is here gathered on the 8th floor of the Ramatan building to protest against what everyone feels is Israel's continuous targeting of journalists. In this conflict, in the last 20 days alone, 4 journalists have been killed. So everyone is here to show solidarity and to protest against Israel's targeting.
I genuinely believe in anywhere there's 2 emotions that you struggle with. One, the emotion of fear and maybe anger that you're probably caught up in the middle of something and you're really defenseless. And 2, the emotion of sadness and grief that you see when you see what is happening to the people and to the environment around you. The fear was very difficult because, you know, I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't scared. I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't afraid. We were also driven with a sense of obligation that masked that fear. and kept us focused on what we were doing.
Well, Imran, we're in the Tell El Hawa neighborhood, which saw some very intense fighting yesterday, and it's a very rare opportunity for us to have made it this far, but I just want to show you where we are standing. In fact, you can see the Israeli tank tracks coming through between this particular road, this dirt road. They've bulldozed so much of the area, and many of the residents that we've been speaking to here, you can see them packing their things, fleeing, trying to make their way out of here. It's obviously a very disturbing scene, and this is really one of the more disturbing scenes. This is the Palestinian Red Crescent building. You can see that it is up in flames. This is actually the medical storage facility.
It was just that much more difficult for us knowing that any sense of security that we may have had completely was shattered in those airstrikes.
We started getting phone calls at the office from lots of other people who were trapped in houses, saying that we can't leave, the Israeli army are right outside. So they were calling us, asking us if we knew where they should go, if we could make the decision for them, because there was that decision to make. If there was a tank near your home, do you leave and put your hands up and wave a white flag and try and go to your neighbor's home and try and move? Or do you sit there? We ourselves didn't know. Should we leave the bureau? Should we try and find somewhere else that was safer? But it was indicative of how helpless people felt, that they had called round and got Al Jazeera's number and were calling and asking, what do you think we should do? The best we could do was put them on air. After that, there is no way of knowing whether any of these people survived, whether any of them lost loved ones, whether their houses were demolished the very second after they put the phone down. The nights for everyone was the hardest part of the day. It's a different type of thing when you can hear the strikes and you can hear the tanks and the artillery around you, and at least it's daylight. But at night, you heard it and you felt there was nothing you could do. There's nothing you could go out and see. There's that feeling of helplessness that's compounded by the fact that you're in the dark. That's when I decided what I really wanted to show was how families spend the night.
نفسيتهم كتير تدهورت من الأصوات، بكفي الأصوات اللي بيسمعوها. يعني نفسيتهم كتير، يعني كتير بخافوا. خلاص بحفرشهم عندي في البيت في الأوضة في الغرفة.
But that didn't last long. The power out, a cue for bedtime.
I think the reason why I found it, from a journalistic point of view, so easy to write these stories, and it literally took me maybe 10 minutes to write each one of those scripts, was because I identified so much with what they were feeling, in terms of the fear, in terms of the feeling of being helpless, in terms of feeling that you could be the next person to go.
We filmed the strikes through the night from the family's window, a series of air and naval attacks in the east of the city. But the kids slept through it, a mixture of exhaustion after 6 sleepless nights, an admission that staying up won't stop the noises.
So we had a relatively calm night. The kids got about 5 hours sleep, which is more than they've been getting in the past 6 days. But they wake up to the reality of the fact that there's still no electricity, there's no water, there's nothing for them to do, and really there's nowhere safe for them to go. Maybe worst of all, they wake up to the fact that they have no idea what's to come next, whether today will be the day that Israel increases its military activity here,
whether one of their strikes will hit their home or their family's home or their neighbor's home. So in some ways it's as if the night was just the beginning, just the easy part.